All right, so the SEC finally joins the bowl season, and the SEC does what we expect the SEC to typically do in December and January, win postseason football games. Mark Rogers TV just a few minutes after Ole Miss disposed of Georgia Tech 25-17. The Rebels have now won 10 of its last 11 bowl games. That's significant. It means a lot. It's worth noting. Now, Hugh Freeze would like those bowl games in the future to be less of the Music City variety and some of the other bowl games we've seen Ole Miss win over the past decade and more of the BCS variety. But that's for 2014 and beyond. For this particular football team coming off a top 5 recruiting class and losing its last 2 football games in the regular season, this was a nice victory, especially after the defense looked in the first quarter. So Ole Miss scored the first score of the game 7-0. Then Georgia Tech with that triple option attack that usually befuddles opponents that have not seen it. Despite all the bowl practice for 4 or 5 weeks, Georgia Tech marched right down the field, made Ole Miss look silly, pushed them off the football with the veteran offensive line, scored easily to make it 7-7. The Yellow Jackets' next possession, pretty much the same thing, came on down the field, but Ole Miss stood up tall and denied the touchdown, denied the score after Georgia Tech put together another what looked to be a scoring drive, and it was 7-7. Then Ole Miss figured things out, and this is kind of what I expected and a lot of people expect in watching a team that's battle-tested, like an Ole Miss, that's played Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Texas A&M, a lot of top-quality players from the best conference in college football, and then on top of that, got used to its bowl practice, got used to and accustomed to, and kind of wore into the game, got into the feel for the game, and that triple option attack that Georgia Tech presents. On top of that, there were some suspensions that lasted just the first series. Cody Pruitt, one of the best safeties in college football, certainly in the SEC, leading the conference in interceptions. Also, the Kemdichi brothers missed the first quarter of action. So Ole Miss had it at 7-7. Again, the defense looked bad the first couple series. Then after that, completely shut down the run, started to get penetration into the backfield. They looked a step slow early, but Ole Miss and that SEC speed caught up with the ACC's power rushing attack, the triple option attack, and the multifaceted looks you get off of it from that Georgia Tech offense. And if you've heard me at all talk about Georgia Tech in the past, Paul Johnson's done an exceptional job with this offense, instituting it and luring some players to come to Atlanta to play for Georgia Tech. I just don't think it's the way to go. I don't think you can win big. You can go 7-5 like he typically does at Georgia Tech. You can win that 7 football games and beat who you're supposed to beat. But to win big in the ACC even, they're going to have to figure out how to throw the football and probably ditch this offense. But it's Paul Johnson's baby, and they run for over 300 yards per game, but only 151 despite the first 2 drives. Ole Miss then shut it down. Georgia Tech only ran for 151 yards on the ground in this football game, as Ole Miss pretty much, I don't know that they dominated the game, they controlled the game. They were decidedly the better football team. Again, from the second quarter and third quarter into the fourth quarter, they were the team, and they built a 23-7 lead in this game. It almost got away from them. Georgia Tech did mount a few first downs, kicked a field goal to make it 23-10. Bo Wallace, the Ole Miss quarterback, who's got a bum shoulder, he's throwing it probably, they estimated, about 70%. Left one out and short on a fade route, actually a sideline route to the left sideline. It got picked off. Georgia Tech scored immediately when Vad Lee, who only completed 5 of 17 passes, that's typical for Georgia Tech, went downfield to Dion Waller for a 72-yard touchdown. Waller with only 15 receptions coming in, but he got loose when Tony Connor, a freshman, replacing Pruitt at that point at safety, got turned around, fell down, and again, Dion Waller, 72-yard touchdown. So immediately we've got a 23-17 game. It was 23-7 Ole Miss just moments before that. Ole Miss caught their breath, started to gain some first downs, went back to the Bo Wallace rushing attack from the quarterback position. Also, He completed passes for 256 yards in this game, 22 of 32. So Wallace gutted this thing out. He was the player of the game, and deservedly so. Ran the offense, and he did what he typically does. He runs from the quarterback position. He doesn't have blazing speed, but he knows what he's doing. He's very elusive, does have solid speed, good speed, and he's a dual threat quarterback in college football. Again, ran for 91, threw for 256, 22 of 32, threw the short passes to LaQuon Treadwell, who finished his freshman campaign with 72 receptions, and most notably, Donte Moncrief of 6 catches in this game for 113 yards for Ole Miss. And the pass that really impressed me was with Ole Miss trying to ice the game late in the fourth quarter with about 3 minutes left on a 3rd and 13. At that point, still leading just 23-17. Wallace completed it down the middle to LaQuon Treadwell on a 3rd and 13 where he really threaded the needle and hit him on stride on a crossing route down the seam. So Ole Miss very impressive in this game again after the first drive of the game and really the second drive for Georgia Tech. They shut down the running game, and if you shut down the Georgia Tech running game, you shut down the Yellow Jackets. Ole Miss had its issues in the field goal kicking department. Andrew Ritter, the senior, came in at 15 of 21, but on this day missed a PAT, had one blocked, missed another one, so Ole Miss could have had a more comfortable lead at 30-7 at one point, but could not get its kicking game together. Georgia Tech, possibly the play of the game to a certain extent, trying to mount a comeback down 23-17 with the ball at its own 10-yard line. Inexplicably, okay, the play call was atrocious, as was noted on the game broadcast. Tried to do a double reverse pass. But in addition to the play call, it was who it was intended for. Corey Dennis is a junior who has not touched the football game in a game this season. Looked him up. No receptions, no pass attempts, no rushing attempts. 0, nada, nothing. And you've got 3 or 4 minutes left in a game, in a bowl game, down 6 at your own 10-yard line, and you're going with the double reverse. Ole Miss got penetration, most notably D.T. Shackelford really made the play. He didn't get the fumble recovery or didn't make the safety in the end zone, but he got the initial penetration that really shook up Corey Dennis. He fumbled the football into the end zone, safety for Ole Miss. Pretty much that's your ball game at 25-17 as Georgia Tech kicked it off. Ole Miss got enough first downs to pretty much ice the game and give the Yellow Jackets the ball back with only about 25 seconds left and down 25-17 deep in its own end. So Ole Miss caps off a 2013 much like it did in 2012 with a bowl victory last year against Pitt in the Compass Bowl in finishing at 7-6 this year. 8-5 after a couple disappointing losses to close out the regular season, and most notably the Egg Bowl in losing in overtime. So there you got it, Rebel fans and Yellow Jacket fans. We need to hear from you on this game, your 2013 season, and looking ahead to 2014. Do you feel good about the players coming back and your prospects for contending in the SEC and the ACC? Let us know what you have right here on Mark Rogers TV.